Rise of the Exile, Book 1 of the Shadow of the Tyrant King series, by J.D. Matter. Chapter 31. The Cloaked Man. 3 Black Eagle soldiers, who had fled from Kree, found themselves in a dark place of the western woodlands. They were tired, hungry, and thirsty. They did not know where to go. If they went back to Kree, either the ghoul or the people there might kill them. If they went back to occupied Atrium City, the Black Eagle there would surely execute them for desertion. So they were somewhat aimless as they wandered in the limbo of the deep woods. "Hey!" shouted one of the soldiers. "You see that?" There was a tree that had been split by lightning and had fallen many years ago. A shadowy figure was sitting upon the leftmost fallen trunk half. It was a large figure, a man. He was entirely cloaked, and if it weren't for his flapping cloak, they might have thought he was a statue of some ancient ruin long buried by the forest. "Who are you?" A soldier stepped closer to the mysterious cloaked man. "Are you fleeing from Kree as well? Are you Black Eagle?" The cloaked man said nothing. His face was hidden behind the shadow of his hood. "Speak up, man," said one of the other soldiers, "or I'll run you through." He drew his sword and cautiously crept toward the shadowy figure. The threatened man stood in a startlingly quick motion, causing his cloak to billow. Now they saw a huge sword slung to his back. Its long handle rose above his left shoulder. The soldier was not interested in being challenged proper, so he made an impromptu thrust at the cloaked man before he thought the stranger would be able to unleash his massive sword. That was an incorrect assumption. With quickness unseen by any of those soldiers before, he stripped the sword from his back and sent it crashing down upon the soldier's thrusting blade. The attacker's sword thudded to the forest floor. Before the soldier could react, the cloaked man used the momentum from his disarming parry to bring the blade back around in a wide loop, sledgehammer style, and sent it crashing down on the soldier's shoulder, splitting his torso like the lightning split the tree. The other 2 soldiers were upon him as a flurry of glinting metal blades. A lesser man would have easily succumbed to the overwhelming simultaneous attacks. The cloaked man slipped left, right, and back, easily dodging their swings, seeming almost nonchalant as he did so. He could take them at his leisure. With an unseen cut, one soldier lost his sword, along with the hand that still clung to it. He screamed as he held his bloody stump. That distracted his fellow soldier for a second. Far too long. The cloaked man swept his legs out from under him and sent him slamming to the dirt. Before he could get up, the cloaked man's sword came stabbing down through the soldier's belly and stopped a full foot into the ground beneath him, effectively nailing him to the forest floor. The hilt swayed back and forth as he released it, leaving it buried within the man. He sent a dagger flying into the face of the soldier with the severed hand, which instantly silenced his screaming and put him out of his misery. He yanked his sword from the skewered soldier and looked around. Months ago, in the land of hills, they were feared figures of authority who enjoyed taking and doing whatever they wanted. Weeks ago, they had been reduced to nomads. 15 seconds ago, they were at least alive, able-bodied, and their only problem was determining which direction to head. Now, they were 3 corpses at the cloaked man's feet. Chapter 32. A Royal Pain. Life in Kree was returning to normal. There was much rebuilding going on, and the streets were usually loud with construction. School opened, and the boys and girls were integrated once again. That was good and bad. Socially, it was good, but somehow less schoolwork was getting done and grades were slipping. Blake and Darlene were ecstatic, constantly nuzzling and kissing in the halls, for Lucas a vomit-inducing sight. Justin had no problems with getting to know girls. In fact, his problem was getting to know too many, and his reputation was consistently one of scandalous drama. Gigi was much more proper and had grown fond of Emily Frostfield, who was also majoring in chemistry. Lucas had difficulty imagining himself with any of the girls at school. They seemed immature. Actually, there was nothing really wrong with them, but they were not Vianette. She haunted him. He compared every girl he saw to her, and none of them could compete. What was more torturous was that Vianette seemed very put off by him. Surely she did not like him the way he liked her. Lucas was no slouch, though. Girls liked him. He was a handsome fellow, and he was somewhat of a celebrity. Many girls looked at him the way he looked at Vianette, untouchable. So he remained a bachelor, as much as a teenager could be called a bachelor. Vianette did not go to school with everyone else. Her lessons were private, as were most of the royals' educations. She and the queen moved from their house of hiding, a common home, into one of the few mansions of Devonstone. Their stay was meant to be temporary, for the true home of woodland royalty was in Atrium City. As that grand metropolis was presumably still occupied by the Black Eagle, they had to remain in Cree. Their temporary quarters were in a beautifully kept mansion owned by the noble Curtis Thender. He was still in prison, and it was strongly suggested that he allow the Queen the use of his residence so that his sentence might be reduced. Besides, he wasn't currently using the place anyway. So Lucas did not see much of Vianette anymore. Occasionally, he took the long way home from school, which took him past the Thender Mansion, but he did not see her by chance the way he had hoped. He grew accustomed to watching his feet as he walked. Once, a horse and carriage almost ran over him, but Lucas never even knew there was a close call. Gigi tried to teach Lucas some new spells with collovium. Gigi had read through much of the ways of Demogorok and was becoming frighteningly proficient with all sorts of magic. He could see that Lucas was preoccupied, for he had trouble with a simple fire-starting spell, a spell Gigi could do on his first try. Lucas was smarter than that, Gigi knew. "Lucas, what's wrong with you lately?" "Huh? Oh, nothing, Gigi. Why?" "You constantly walk around staring at nothing in particular. You're unusually quiet. You just look plain sad." "Huh? I'm sorry, what did you say?" "If you light a toad's ass on fire, will it sing you a lullaby?" "Sure, we'll do that." Gigi rolled his eyes. That settled it. Lucas was not listening at all. Just then, Blake happened to be walking by with Darlene on his arm. Gigi tugged on Blake's sleeve. "Blake, ask Lucas something. Anything." "Okay. Hey, Lucas, what's, 2 plus 2? "Tuesday." "Yeah, he's gone," said Blake. "I know that look," said Darlene. "Why, I wouldn't believe it if I didn't see it with my own 2 eyes. The mighty Lucas Archer is in love." She giggled. That Lucas heard. "Don't be ridiculous." His red face made her laugh even more. Lucas had good friends, but he did not feel like being near them at the moment. Without a word, he stormed off. He went to the end of the hall and down the stairs. His last class, advanced algebra, which he apparently needed for Tuesday was not the result of very many equations, was on the first floor. In a last-minute decision, he decided to head outside rather than to his math class. As soon as he burst through the doors and into the fresh air, he ran headlong into Justin. "Oh, you scared me, Lucas. I nearly shot straight to Viroxia." "Sorry, Justin. But since when are you startled? What are you doing out here anyway?" "Same thing you are, I spec. I thought you were a teacher, bursting through the door like that. I was in the middle of pretending to head back into the building, till I saw it was only you." "I don't usually cut class," said Lucas, feeling like a deviant. "Sure, I know that," replied Justin. "But I do." He laughed. "Listen, I want to get home." Lucas was anxious to walk past the Thunder Mansion and possibly catch a glimpse of Vianette. Lucas hustled briskly away and had put nearly 50 feet between them before Justin called after him. "Hey, Lucas!" Justin jogged casually back to Lucas's side. "You're not going to believe this, but I think I might have damn near lost my mind." "Huh? Why?" "'Cause I had a crazy idea. It's bold, it's ambitious. I can't believe I thought of it." "What? What already?" "I'm gonna try my luck with the one and only, the forbidden fruit, Princess Vianette." Lucas could hardly believe those words came out of Justin's mouth. Lucas almost stumbled and felt his stomach turn. "But she's a princess." That was all Lucas could think to say, and it was barely audible. "I know, but have you seen her? A fella's gotta try." Lucas was disgusted with Justin. His teeth clenched, and he wanted to punch him like he did the day they met. That, however, would have been quite hypocritical, Lucas knew. How could he blame Justin for being smitten with the lovely Vianette? Well, was he really interested in her? There were many girls at school who could attest that Justin had many things on his mind, and delightful conversation was not one of them. No, Lucas was determined to win Vianette over before this cad could get to her and warp her entire perspective of the male gender. "Say, Lucas, let's head the long way over to your house and run past Thender's place." He was certainly thinking like Lucas. Lucas could say no, in which case Justin might go on without him and find himself alone with Vianette. That was unacceptable. At least if they both went, Justin would not be alone with her, should they see her at all. "Okay," said Lucas. When they passed by the mansion, there was nobody to be seen. "Let's go bang on the door," said Justin, suddenly very much not thinking like Lucas. "Are you crazy?" "Yeah, like I told you, remember?" Justin was already halfway up the fine green lawn. "Justin, come back!" It was too late. Lucas reluctantly followed. There was no need to bang on the door. As they approached, the door flew open and two burly men came out. They were dressed in the uniforms of the Royal Guard, plate mail, with green tunics that had a leafy pattern and a single purple leaf circled with white vines, which stood for royalty. "You boys have no business here," said one of the Royal Guards. Justin opened his mouth to speak, but what would have been keen charisma was nipped in the bud before he made a sound. "Before the excuse starts," said one of the guards, "do you honestly think we're so ignorant that we know not why you're here? We've seen a million of you starry-eyed kids." Then the other guard added, "Princess Vianette! Oh, Princess, how we love thee!" He spoke in a childish voice, and the guards nearly fell over each other laughing. Justin laughed too. It was funny, seeing such a big, proper man act that way. Lucas, however, was not laughing. It made his dreams seem that much more far-fetched. Lucas and Justin turned and began to walk away. Justin was chuckling. Lucas unexpectedly turned around. Even he did not know he was going to do it until he did. "Royal Guards should act regally," he scolded. "Sanctimonious little—" The guard's insult was cut off by the sudden presence of Vianette. She appeared at the threshold, and the guards bowed. She craned her neck over the bowing guards to see who the visitors were. Justin did not hesitate with this newfound opportunity. "Your Highness," said Justin as he dramatically dropped to one knee, "we come to seek an audience with thee, if only to regale a tale of your recent tribulations, or to merely be inspired by your grace." Princess Vianette and both the guards nearly dropped to the floor laughing. "Come to regale a tale, have you?" She could not hold back the tears and was out of breath. "Oh, kind sir, your words remind me of the songbirds that flutter about in the sweet dewy morning." Justin liked being mocked by her. At least he had her attention. which was something to work with. You jest, my lady, but even your casual rebuttal boasts of poetry hitherto unrivaled. It pleases me to learn that glistening Lake Viennette is as deep as it is beautiful. Justum's genuflect lowered considerably. Lucas never heard Justum speak like that before. He was in rare form. Viennette took a few steps forward, looking closely at Justum. Your words might impress me more if they were spoken with a tongue that wasn't forked. Justum laughed. Yeah, you're right, V. Who am I kidding? I'm a jerk, and you know it. Lucas winced at the informality of Justum's last statement, but much to his horror, Viennette seemed to like it. She beamed at Justum, and Lucas felt sick. The princess casually glanced Lucas's way, and she was taken aback by his distressed expression. Enough, said Viennette. You two should go now before my mother has both your heads, especially you. She nodded toward Justum. You shameless royal flirt. Lucas and Justum were well on their way to Lucas's house. Justum was practically skipping. Oh, she's good, said Justum while ignoring Lucas's obvious depression. She's nothing like the girls at school. I knew it. Lucas imagined that it would be glorious to feel the bones of Justum's face break against his fist. Lucas, did you see the way she looked at me? She likes me. I know it. I have a sixth sense about these things. She had that same look Rebecca had. Remember her? She was crazy about me, just like Samantha and Kathy and Wendy and Jenny and... Oh yeah? Really? Lucas could not stand Justum at the moment. Yeah, replied Justum, failing to detect Lucas's sarcasm, for he was still reeling from his banter with Viennette. Lucas, you could learn quite a bit from me. Take V, for instance. She was ice cold. After a mere minute, she was ready to smother me with kisses, if maybe the guards weren't there. You think so? Lucas spoke snidely. Justum did not know how close he was to being struck. Yeah, come to think of it, I haven't seen you with any ladies. You could probably use a few pointers, eh? Lucas felt a hard, familiar poke between his shoulder blades. He quickly spun around and was shocked to see lovely Viennette standing before him. Her eyes were glistening. Lucas, I'm sorry I smacked you. She was near tears, and they were not tears of laughter. She kissed Lucas hard on the lips. Justum's mouth was gaping. Chapter 33. The Troubled 33. Some clusters of the retreating Black Eagle troops found each other in the western woodlands. They organized themselves into a platoon and felt safer than they had since originally retreating into the forest. A hardy sergeant cautiously led them south. The eerie green dimness of the woods was stifling and they could not see far ahead. A scout, therefore, was sent forth. They faintly heard his scream, and he was never seen again. A young, brash soldier who was looking to prove himself volunteered to take the fallen scout's place. He, too, disappeared behind the murky walls of trunks and leaves. That settled it. There would be no more scouts. The men would stick together. With a crackling crash, the forest floor seemed to suddenly disappear beneath 5 men. It was a pit trap that caved in beneath their weight. If they had been walking single file, it would have only taken one of them. As it was, 4 of the men were skewered with sharp stakes protruding upward from the pit's bottom. One man escaped the trap with a broken ankle, and a fellow soldier put an arm around him and took up most of his weight to help him walk. The cloaked man was high in a tree as he observed the success of his trap. He eliminated 6 thus far. 27 remained. 3 more died and 1 was fatally injured and left for dead as a result of a log-swinging trap. One soldier, who claimed to be a good tracker, set out to find the trap setter. His so-called tracking ability failed to warn him that he was being hunted, however, and a pack of hungry wolves devoured him, saving the cloaked man the trouble of dealing with him. 6 men were caught up in a net trap. The net pulled them high into a tree. That was not the trap's only device, however, for like clockwork, a vat of smelly oil tipped onto them from a higher branch. Within seconds, they had become an angry ball of oil-blackened men. Then the flaming arrow came. The whoosh and sudden blast of heat was immense as the men became a huge ball of brilliant orange fire. After a minute, they felt nothing. They were charred corpses. 5 furious men charged into the direction the flaming arrow had come from, but the cloaked man anticipated that. His dagger cut free a grizzly bear that he had leashed to a tree. The bear, which had learned not to attack the cloaked man, ran for the soldiers instead. 3 escaped. 2 were mauled. There were 14 men left. 1 suddenly fell to an arrow. The men scattered, running for cover. 2 more fell from arrows as they fled. There was silence for a while. Only the crickets made noise, but each man could hear his own quick breaths. Who was this terror among them? The whine of a flying arrow resounded and stopped with a brutal thud. Another man fell. Then, a minute later, another man dropped with an arrow shaft protruding from his head. The remaining 9 men were ready to scatter before the cloaked man finally showed himself. The man with the broken ankle stayed on the ground, and 2 men, including their sergeant leader, stayed by his side with swords drawn. The other 6 men simultaneously rushed their enemy. The cloaked man became a blur of steel and cloak. 2 men did not realize they were out of the fight until they tried to swing their swords with arms they suddenly did not have anymore. They screamed with horror as the red haze of battle raged on. 3 men swiped fruitlessly at the cloaked man, slicing only air. The cloaked man's sword crushed down upon one soldier's breastplate. The armor saved him from being cut, but the dented metal made it impossible for him to breathe, and he asphyxiated. The other 2 hacked furiously, and soon there was a red mist of blood all around them. The blood was theirs, though, for they suddenly had many sliced arteries. How could they have prevented attacks that were too quick to see? They bled to death. During that melee, 1 soldier ran away. He had seen enough. There were 3 soldiers left. The vision of the blood-stained cloaked man approaching them with his dripping sword was grim. The man with the broken ankle was unarmed. The other 2 immediately dropped their swords and dropped to their knees. "We're at your mercy," said Broken Ankle. "You must be Obsidian or Varaxian, yes? I've never seen such skill."
"He speaks for us as well," said the sergeant. "We surrender. We know when we are beaten."
The cloaked man slipped back his hood, and they were shocked to see that he was a man of the woodland realm. He did not have the shining aura of a Varaxian, whom so many worshipped as deities, nor did he have the ominous, fiery glow of an Obsidian, whom so many feared. He had stringy black hair and a deeply scarred face that had seen much brutality. He was merely a mortal woodland man. "You yield to me?" asked the cloaked man in a commanding tone.
"Indeed, we do."
"Then you are prisoners of war, and will be treated as such." That did not sound good to the men of the Black Eagle, for they did not treat their prisoners well. Predictably, the cloaked man collected their weapons. Much to their surprise, though, he tended to the injured man. He set the broken ankle. The screams echoed throughout the forest, and every nearby animal left the area. His ankle felt slightly better after the cloaked man splinted it. The other men had some minor wounds, which he checked.
"Why have you allowed us to live, sir?"
"You surrendered."
"Yes, but forgive me, you didn't give the others that opportunity. They were killed with treacherous traps and arrows from afar."
I had to thin your herd before attacking honorably. Besides, do you think they would have surrendered to me? 33 men? Would 10? Would 5 even surrender to 1 man? I see your point. Who are you? That is not your concern. Be concerned only with my instructions. Head back to your homeland. Do not stay here. Do not go to Atrium City or back to Crete. Go to the desolate mountains from whence you came. If they kill you, then so be it. If they let you live and raise a family, then so be it. If they send you back here, beating the drums of war again, then abandon them and swear allegiance to us. For if you come back here with thoughts of fighting, then I will give you a fight, in the same way I have fought your comrades. Chapter 34. Horrendous Embrace. Concentrate, Gigi yelled at Lucas. Lucas moved the wand exactly as Gigi taught him, but his thoughts were not as precise. To do the magic properly, his thoughts had to be as correct as the wand's movement. He pointed Colovium at the rotten log, and a stream of fire shot out of the wand brush, causing the log to explode, which sent dangerous splinters shooting in all directions. Lucas and Gigi threw their arms up to shield their faces. A few carbon stains aside, there were no injuries.
What were you thinking?
Asked Gigi.
Were you thinking of an explosion?
Yes.
No, you were supposed to be thinking of simply flames. Flames will start a campfire. Explosions will start a forest fire. And maybe we should move on to something a little safer.
Fire did not matter. Safer did not matter. Lucas had trouble thinking of anything except the kiss.
Let's try the opposite,
said Gigi, who also had a wand. He constructed it himself using instructions from the Ways of Demogorok to achieve the specific characteristics he wanted of his wand. His wand was designed mainly for elemental spells. Gigi pointed it at one of the many puddles that had accumulated during the spring rains. The puddle began to crystallize and became slushy. He could not freeze it completely, but came very close.
Try to freeze that puddle over there.
Gigi pointed to a similar-sized puddle 10 feet to Lucas's right. Lucas instead pointed Colovium at a much larger puddle, a lowland area that was flooded with nearly a foot of water, where the grass was no longer visible. The water crystallized and smoky, solid ice formed at the shallow edges and spread quickly to the deeper center. There were loud creaks and pops as the ice cracked and became like slabs of white rock in the grass. They felt piercing cold from the more than frozen, steaming sheet of broken ice.
Take it easy, Lucas. You might hurt yourself one day with all this showing off, or worse.
Gigi knew full well that Lucas was not nearly as learned a mage as he was himself. Colovium, Gigi knew, brought Lucas his ease of magic. Gigi felt that he would need to construct a mage's staff to compete with the power of Colovium. A staff could hold much more power than a wand, but Colovium was unique. The staff would have to be exceptional. Lucas and Gigi were far south of Devonstone, deep into the hills near the Rook estate. It started to rain, but Gigi waved his wand and all the raindrops seemed to miss him and Lucas. Despite the storm, they remained perfectly dry as they headed back home. Gigi, how are things with you and Emily?
Oh, Lucas, she's great. She could dissect a snorcalf blindfolded and with one hand tied behind her back. I've seen her mix up complex potions on intuition alone.
I meant you and Emily.
Fine, I guess. I don't really know how she feels about me. I'm no Justin.
Trust me, that's not such a bad thing. Gigi laughed. Gigi, I think she likes you.
Really? How can you tell?
Well, it's the way she looks at you, the way she goes out of her way to be near you. Gigi's gait was suddenly springier. Speaking of Justin, said Lucas. "Have you seen him since yesterday?"
No.
"Of course not. He would have told you."
Told me what?
"Princess Vianette kissed me," blurted Lucas. Gigi stopped.
Oh, you almost had me. Lucas, those are pipe dreams.
"No, it's true. Justin was there. He saw it."
Why would she do that?
"I have no idea." Lucas explained that she was the one who tried to save him from the pursuing Black Eagle. She was the one who sent the sandwiches falling through the window in his prison cell. He described how she had inexplicably smacked him behind the curtain at the festival.
That is strange indeed,
replied Gigi. "I can't complain, Gigi. I really like her. I'd rather she smack me than ignore me, and I certainly would rather be kissed than smacked. She might seem crazy, but have you seen her? She's gorgeous."
She's probably acting crazy because she likes you too.
"I hope so."
I can't believe it. Lucas, what if... Never mind.
"No, what?"
Well, you're the son of a duke. She is a princess.
"You mean Lucas Archer, king of the Woodland Realm?" Lucas laughed.
I'm serious,
said Gigi.
How do you think these things happen? Sure, you don't have a classical education, but technically you are nobility. She has apparently taken an interest in you. The far-fetched parts of the story have already happened, Sir Archer.
"Hey, back up. What's so far-fetched about her taking an interest in me?" Lucas and Gigi arrived at Devonstone just as the rain was letting up. Without verbally planning their route home, they were both of one mindset and took the way past the Thunder Mansion. A large, cloaked man was coming from the opposite direction. Lucas and Gigi had never seen the likes of him before, nor did they wish to see the likes of him again, for he looked menacing. The man was saturated with rain. His cloak was soiled with mud and crusty reddish-brown stains. What was that? Was it what it looked like? Blood? Lucas and Gigi were prepared well ahead of time to get out of his way. If they kept on the same heading, they would cross paths right in front of the Thunder Mansion. They did remain on the same heading, but the cloaked man did not heed them, which was a relief. Lucas and Gigi slowed as they reached the mansion. To their surprise and dismay, the cloaked man slowed as well. Now he did heed them. Suddenly, everyone was distracted by a quick movement near the mansion. Vianette had burst through the front door and was running across the lawn. She had a wide smile. Her feet were bare and she was wearing a loose dress. The wind made the dress cling to the front of her body as she ran, and Lucas noticed pleasant curves that he did not know she had. She raised her arms, ready to be embraced. Lucas was shocked that she seemed so happy to see him. He felt overjoyed. He too held up his arms, ready to receive her. Lucas was quite embarrassed to see her leap not into his arms, but into the arms of the cloaked man. The tall, rough man lifted her off the ground with ease, and they spun in circles. She pulled back his hood and planted sweet little kisses all about his forehead and cheeks. How could she kiss such a scarred, dirty face? Lucas marched quickly by, pretending to ignore them, pretending badly, though, for his face was contorted with anger and disappointment. She saw Lucas's obvious jealousy, but remained by the cloaked man's side. Gigi had to practically jog to keep up with Lucas. Chapter 35. The Heir. The next day, Friday, school let out with a thunderous stampede of students. Gigi, Justin, and the Blake-Darlene duo loitered about the school's many front steps until they saw Lucas quickly storm by. "Hey, Lucas, what's gotten into you lately?" asked Blake. Lucas had been sulking all day and had not talked to anyone, which was highly irregular. "Nothing."
"It's all right, Lucas,"
said Gigi.
"You're among friends." Did anything more happen with my lady? Blurted Justin.
What's he talking about?
Asked Blake. Lucas only sighed. Justin eagerly divulged every juicy detail he witnessed. For a full minute, Blake and Darlene's eyes seemed like they were going to bulge right out of their sockets. Then Blake burst into hysterical, over-the-top laughter. Several pedestrians turned to see what the commotion was about. Lucas failed to see what was so funny, as did Gigi. Justin did not really understand either, but the sight of Blake's hysterics made him laugh too. Darlene, oddly, looked very nervous.
You? Her?
Blake was near tears.
I can't believe it.
No, Darlene shot back. Be quiet, Blake. Damn it.
What's gotten into you?
Asked Blake, quieted by Darlene's inexplicable reaction. If you say another word, I swear. Darlene clenched her fists in preparation of her next statement. If you do, we're through. Her speech wavered slightly with unease. Blake looked like a scolded puppy, and she immediately felt bad. Blake, I'll explain later. Just be quiet until then. Explain what? Asked Lucas. Do you know Vianette? Darlene would not speak. Is this about that tall brute she's seeing? Asked Lucas. Darlene looked as though she did not hear Lucas properly. Do you know what she's talking about? Lucas asked Gigi. No. Do you? Lucas turned to Justin and he shook his head. I ain't got a clue, said Justin. Lucas, sorry, but I can't say, said Darlene. I made a promise. Fine, Lucas said as he stormed off. His so-called friends were disappointing him lately. Lucas was in an angry haze as he marched down the sidewalk. His friends remained behind, cognizant that they should leave Lucas alone. After Lucas left, Gigi explained what happened with the cloaked man. Lucas was buried deep within his own self-pity when he barely noticed the deep thudding footsteps approaching from behind. He saw the shadow of a man gaining on his own shadow upon the sidewalk. Lucas spun around and faced the chest of a tall man. The man who looked down on Lucas seemed very familiar. He had cleaned himself up, but indeed he was the cloaked man. His face and hair were clean. He might have been very dashing once, but the scars upon his face were deep, indiscriminate grooves that cut across brow, nose, lips, and chin. His hair was long and black. It was tied into a ponytail, but the bangs had escaped and framed his face. He no longer donned the cloak, but instead casually wore an unfastened leather tunic. Beneath that was what looked to be the garb of a nobleman. He wasn't a fat nobleman like Fender, though. He was lean and muscular. His face grimaced. His eyes showed a keenness that seemed to pierce into Lucas's thoughts. As if he were not intimidating enough, there was a daunting 5-foot sword slung to his back. Sir Lucas Archer, I presume? Frightened, Lucas could only nod. Some night. I'm pleased to meet you, Sir Archer. My name is Garrett Narmonius. Lucas recognized the name Narmonius as belonging to the king of the Woodland Realm, who had perished in the royal airship disaster of Atrium City about a decade ago. That scene of carnage was not easily forgotten, even though Lucas was only 6 at the time. Would you come with me, Sir Archer, to the Queen's residence? Lucas, nonplussed, nodded again, and they walked. I knew your father, Harklin Archer. He was a great mage and a good friend of my father, the king. Something clicked in Lucas's head. This enormous brute was Vianette's brother. A heavy burden suddenly lifted from Lucas's shoulders. You're the heir? Asked Lucas. His voice squeaked. I guess I am. Hopefully there will be a kingdom to inherit, yes? Again, Lucas nodded. You don't talk much, do you, Sir Archer? Please call me Lucas, my lord. I'm not used to this sir business. Garrett laughed. Understandable. You're the youngest knight I've ever met. I too am unaccustomed to my station, so please call me Garrett, and none of this my lord business. Agreed? Agreed. That said, Lucas, I've heard my mother babble incessantly about your exploits. Don't believe everything you hear. Garrett laughed again, and Lucas was beginning to feel at ease. I'm certain the stories are true, my friend, for I've heard them from many, many people. Has your sister told you stories of me? Lucas saw a muscle in Garrett's jaw contract. That was a bit too bold, Lucas feared. Garrett playfully slapped Lucas on the back and put his arm around him. My sister. Garrett's hand moved to the back of Lucas's neck. She is a vision of innocence, isn't she? As he said that, Lucas could feel Garrett's grip grow tighter around the back of his neck. Yes, she is, said Lucas, and he was surprised to hear how high-pitched his own voice suddenly became. Yes, Garrett said while using his giant hand to manually nod Lucas's head. She is. Garrett messed up Lucas's sandy hair and lightheartedly pushed his head away, which made Lucas almost fall down. Lucas was greatly relieved to feel the release of Garrett's hand. He felt like an idiot for mentioning anything about Vianette. He quickly changed to the subject. Garrett, tell me of my father. I'd be happy to.